Hello and welcome everyone to our ninth episode of our Partnership Ecosystems Improvement Series. Today we will dive into partner recruitment. This is part two for our partner recruitment, and today we will discuss the actual recruitment process. So we hope this discussion will provide you with the insights you need to engage and onboard your ideal partner. So with us today, as always, we have Gilles Esposito, and Gilles has worked in channel partnerships and alliances for nearly 25 years with distributors, vendors, partners, and brings a holistic view to our partner ecosystem conversations. And we have Carlo Breda, who we know has spent over 3 decades in the channel, passionate about partnerships and how companies can optimize the power of their partner ecosystems. I am Aaron Solomon, the Director of Operations here at Gorilla. I've worked to manage channel sales, marketing programs, and partner recruitment programs for a variety of vendors and helped build channels from the ground up. So let's get started today. So, guys, thanks for joining. And yeah, really looking forward to the discussion. So, last month was, all about the ideal partner profile. So now you've identified your ideal partner profile. What happens next? Where do we start?
Yes. So I'm going to start with that, if you're okay with that, Carlo. So just as a reminder, as you were saying, Aaron, it's really, really important to do that ideal partner profile and then work the methods we presented last month to make sure that you're not going to waste a ton of time prospecting partners that are not that are most likely not going to yield what it is that you expect out of this relationship with them. And it's taxing to do the previews phase. This one is also taxing. You will probably, if you're a small company, you will probably have a very, very limited amount of resources at the beginning. So everything that can maximize your efforts and the performance of what it is that you're trying to achieve is good to tackle. So now what do you do? Well, hopefully there's an intermediary phase, which you should be defining when you put your recruitment strategy in place, and which has to do with how am I going to get to these people, right? Traditionally, what I've observed over the past 20 years is that there's a number of lists out there that are available, produced by companies like CRN or MSP 501 or whatnot. That gives you CRN, I think, gives you like the top 2,000, partners. What now they call MSP, it used to be partners, but since they all do a little bit of everything today, it's all blended, and that's a good start. That's a good start. There's other ways to do that, right? You can invite people through social channels to partake into your channel efforts and join you. You can have dedicated pages on your website, which clearly, and I insist on this, from the first page shows that you have a partner program and shows and gives the option for people if they're interested to come. So that's more of an inbound aspect of things. It's not going to work more well at the beginning because your brand is not known, your capabilities are not known. It's something that usually company have a lot of success with when they're the size of a Dell or something of that nature, right? Where spontaneously a lot of partner come and say, hey, that'd be nice to have this on my line card. But just like everything, there's not one thing that is going to be the killer of all things, right? It's an aggregate of a lot of little things that you're going to have a lot of success. And just like sales, you need a lot of prospects. So selling a partnership is traditionally a little easier than pure sales because you're not going to ask people to pay money to join your partner program. And if you have this in mind, I will advise you right away to drop the ID. In this day and age, nobody needs you. That's the one message that I keep repeating to everybody. Not one partner out there was dying years over years till your company came about, and now finally they see the light, and with signing up in a partnership with you, they're gonna suddenly explode. Or no, this doesn't exist. They all have plenty of vendors on their line card. They make their numbers. They're good. So you're going to have to be proactive and in a way that is very enticing to them to decide to sign, because again, there's so many options for them to resell something that if it's going to take too much time, if it's going to be too complex, if they don't have a feeling that this is potentially for them a nice complement to what they're doing today, or maybe a game changer to what they're doing today, they're probably going to politely tell you that maybe later, something like this, right? But it's not going to happen. So what that means, and we're going to start sharing. If you don't mind, Jill. So we've put a little document here that we will make available for all of you. And before we go into the actual process, what I'd like to do is look at this big box there, right? And that's a caution message to say, before you start recruiting, make sure you're ready, right? That's really important that you have everything about your partner program, your processes related to the partner. So that's from quote to cash, but everything around this as well. What else? Your all the material you're going to be making handy for your partners so they can understand what it is that you're selling, how you pitch it, this and that. All your technical material, such as white paper and all that, marketing material, etc., etc. And the last is, I talk about the internal and external processes. So the external processes, obviously, that's clear, right? The internal processes are important as well, right? How are you going to operate internally when there are channel conflicts, to make sure there's quick resolution around this, and many other things like this, usually gravitating around issues or problems or conflicts, such as credit lines, such as having two partners registering the same deal at the same time, those kind of things, right? And you need to have that OT and understand who has authority, what's the chain of command, and how can you resolve this as quickly and simply as possible. But you need to be decently channel ready at the time you start recruiting, because that's the first thing your partners are going to be, beside the validation of your solution being something valuable for them to put in their line card. The first thing they're going to be, after that, they're going to be assessing is whether or not you are channel ready, at least to a level that is not going to create headache for them every time they're going to have to deal with you for anything, right? And more likely than not, when you're going to have the first meeting with them, they will ask questions about that. Probably not covering everything. It's going to be a first meeting. But if you have all this consigned into a nice little presentation where you're going to refrain from talking about you too much and show them, the goal of the presentation that you're going to put in front of them is traditionally to show them that you are channel ready, you understand how channel operates, you understand how the interactions between a partner and a vendor works, you know what the problem can be when they arise, and you know how to address them, right? Those type of things. And depending on the audience you have, what I suggest is to have a deck with variable slides. For example, if you're dealing with an audience of salespeople, you're going to want to add a slide that we call the money slide, where, for example, where you can show how much money they can make out of your solution based on 3 scenarios. One where, let's say, they're going to sell your solution once a year. Another scenario, they're going to sell it 3 times a year. And another scenario, maybe they're going to sell it, they're super good, they're going to sell it 7 times or 10 times a year. And then you do the math for them and show them, this is how much your company is going to get. They'll make the calculation because they know how much they get out of the margin that goes to the company. You won't know that. Sometimes you will, that's good, but you won't know that traditionally. But they'll make the math about this. And if at the time your recruiting partners, you already have other incentives in place and all that, I suggest you add this to that money slide, for example, and show them the money, show them dollars, right? And that you'll see their eyes if it's salespeople and all that. If it's technical people, they're going to want to see your solution being benchmarked unless you're unique in your space, in which case you don't need any of that because people will run to you anyway. But they're going to want to see how you compare to other similar products and that kind of stuff. So get ready to have those type of specialization in your deck, right? And sometimes you will have both. Traditionally, I suggest to go on different calls with technical people that you will go with salespeople. But sometimes you don't have the option to do that, right? Remember, the technical people are extremely important, even if they're not the one that are going to sell your product. They are definitely the one that are going to tell the upper management whether yes or no, we need this product on our line card. So they're the gatekeepers now, and regardless of it, how much money they can make out of your solution, if they say no, you're not going to be on board most of the time. So once you have all this ready, right? So you know your partner profiles, you have identified some lists with people that seem to fit within that ideal partner profile for you, and you think you're channel ready. You have defined your channel of communication to reach out to partner, and it may be that you're going to take that list, go to each website, either fill a form if they have something for vendor that apply with them. That will be the case for like larger vendors. Like if you want to work for CDW, you don't reach out to them and say, hey, do you want to be a partner? You have to fill a form, give a lot of information, all that, and then they come back to you. But most of the partner are not that size. So you will probably at some point reach out, find who's the vendor manager if they have a vendor manager. If they don't have a vendor manager, you're probably going to try to reach out to the CEO or the VP of sales, somebody like this, right? I'm going to pause for a second. Carlo, you have anything to add to this, or?
You've gone through a lot. And it's all been not only textbook perfect, but also full of very, very practical advice. So yeah, there's not a lot that I need to add, but I will add a couple of things anyway, just to reinforce some of the points you made. I think that the one of the biggest mistakes that many vendors, small vendors, do when they actually reach out to channel is they say, yeah, we expect, hey, we put a lot of effort into this. We got a great solution. We expect our partners to have skin in the game. So we expect them to contribute a fee. And so many new vendors go to market with that attitude. And they'll say, well, we'll train you, but you're going to have to pay for it because the product is so good. You need to learn it. And, you're going to have to pay the training fee. You may have to pay a membership fee or like an entry fee to the partner program. An annual fee. That all these things are just like absolutely the kiss of death, because although they feel that their solutions are great, it's just not the way to start a relationship. So I would absolutely caution everybody to stay absolutely clear from that kind of angle. Now, what I've seen with a lot of small vendors is that usually they hire a channel guy, right? The guy who's going to sort of start off with the channel initiative. And he or she will often say, well, I know this, I can't really do this, but my upper management dictates that we really have to. They don't get channel. But that's just the beginning. That's setting yourself up for failure. So I would absolutely caution you from doing that. That's the first thing I wanted to say. The other thing is, I think just you got to approach the channel with a level of it's not necessarily humility, but you've got to be real. You got to be yourself, and you got to be prepared. And I think the differentiator really is when you sit down and you have an authentic conversation with a partner, and you show that you're prepared to have their back, right? That's the differentiator, I think, at the end of the day, from a partnership perspective, is the feeling that the partner can start to, go away from the meeting knowing that, yeah, but this vendor is going to take care of me. They're going to really support our processes. They're going to support our growth. They're prepared to do that more than others. We're not going to be just a number. These are important considerations. And as Gilles pointed out, the two audiences have to be carefully covered and sort of catered for the technical audience and the commercial audience. So I couldn't agree more with what you just said, Jill. Back over to you.
All right. So we're at the point where you reach out, either phone calls or whatever and all that, and now you do have a partner that say, yeah, let's have a discussion, right? And so what do you do from there? So we just talked about it. You're going to define whether or not you're going to set up a call, and you're going to find who's going to be on that call. It's extremely important for you to know the topology of the people that are going to be present at that call, because if you have a technical audience and it's just the channel manager, for example, that's going to go on that call and he's or she is incapable of talking in depth about the solution, you're doomed. It's not going to look very good, right? And although it's nice to be authentic and to say, hey, I'm the channel guy, I know nothing about the technology behind the product and all that, but I can come back with you if you have question on that. That's really a subpar answer. Even if it's the honest answer, it's completely subpar. So you want to make sure that when you've identified that there's going to be people, and be careful with CEOs of companies and all that, because very often it can be a technical person that is the CEO of a company. And if it's the one that is driving this call, he or she is going to be asking technical questions. So make sure you identify the presence of somebody who has technical expertise. Make sure you agree on what the agenda is going to be. Are we only going to talk about the programs, or are we going to talk about the product itself, and so on? And sometimes people will say, no, we know everything about your product. We did our due diligence, we researched, we did X, Y, and Z. We may have one or two questions, but that's not going to be the core of the discussion, whatever. But at any rate, if you have identified that there's chances or heavy chances that you're going to be talking technical during that call, make sure you identify the right person from your organization that can cater to that discussion. And the right person is not the person that knows the product the best. It's the person that knows the product well enough, but is warm, has empathy, can have a discussion where people are going to enjoy having a discussion with that person. So I keep.
I just got to jump in because I have seen many situations whereby the person pitching the partnership is like a sales engineer that is extremely technical, that approaches the call from a very technical standpoint, and actually tries to sell it to a commercial audience. That's a bad fit. That could be a very, very bad fit. So yeah, in terms of planning, you want to make sure that you align the right resources for the call, knowing who your audience is going to be and making it match. And if you don't know, be prepared for both, because we've seen that, Aaron. You probably know, remember what vendor I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because there was, when you want to, and I get it, as a small vendor with a new product in the market, you really want to talk about the product. But a lot of the partners that you're recruiting, they'll understand the product, and you're right. If there's not anybody technical that's on the call, you need to have somebody there that's able to sell the value of the partner program to the partner, right? Because a lot of vendors have very similar programs, but what's the differentiator in the market with your partner program? And it's not just about the product.
You know what? The passion is so important. So whoever is it, whether it's a technical person or it doesn't matter who, at the end of the day, as long as they can talk with passion about the partnership, right? It's not necessarily with passion about their product, because that's boring. It's talking with passion about how the partnership is going to really deliver for both parties. That's a trick, I think.
Yeah, and back to what Jill says, like the partner wants to know that the vendor's going to have their back, right?
Yeah. So it's there's I'll give an example of that. Because
I think we lost Jill.
I think we did.
Sorry. I don't know. Am I still sharing or not? Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay. I don't know what happened. It blinked. Sorry about that, everybody. So let me reshare here. There you go. Sorry.
So
I was saying I have a very good example of that because I consulted for partners for VARs in a strategy to select the right vendor and all that. And I went on a number of calls, a lot, with vendors that were trying to get those VARs to sign up with them. And I would debrief with the audience at the employees that were attending that call from the partner side. And some of them were very precise in their analysis of how it went and what they liked, didn't like, and all that. But the general feeling that I had from people were always in the range of, I like these guys. Not their product, not their company, not the way they presented this. Not, it was, I like these guys. And this comes down to that one thing that one day I learned, and I keep this as a mantra for me, is that people don't remember the slides, the technical details, the stuff, the this and that. And make the test on you. Go to any event and go to any keynote or whatever and all that, and people don't remember what was said or very little of it, but they all remember how they felt. So it's how you make them feel that matters during. So if they enjoy, if they feel they can trust you, if they feel it can be those type of feelings, that makes an imprint, a big one. And if you have the best product of the world and all that, and they really had a bad feeling, they really didn't like you, or what they got out of it is not positive and all that, chances are they're not going to sign you, right? Unless again you're the VMware of 20 years ago and you're the only one having your product and all that, which I guess this doesn't happen anymore, or it may happen in the future, but it's going to be one instance, and then you're lucky. But even with that, it's still better, because at some point you will have competitors. But anyway, back to the map. So you're going to need to prep your call, right? And you're going to need to have an NDA. You're going to need the NDA signed and all that kind of stuff. Then you have your call, and whatever happens during that call, we give you a lot of information as to how you prepare a deck. If you need more of that information, reach out. We're not going to charge you. I can show you examples of decks where we're going to tell you, those are usually the structure that I like to see on a deck for my channel teams, because it covers everything possible. And you'll see a lot of the slides are optional, and it's only if the partner asks about something that you're going to go there, because you want it to be a discussion, not a death by PowerPoint again, right? So 6-7 slides that cover a little bit everything, and then maybe another 10 slides to cover the stuff that they're going to be asking, and say, funny you're asking, because I have this information for you, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. But let's fast forward the call. We're not going to talk about what happens during the call, right? Just remember not to talk too much about you, and ask a lot of questions about them. But either your partner is going to sign up, or they're not ready yet, right? If they're not ready yet, it's very easy. You're going to probe them and try to understand why they're not ready yet, and you're going to adapt your recruitment strategy based on what they're going to tell you, right? We need more of that, less of this, whatever the recipe is. Just go back to the kitchen, cook it again, and then represent it to them and say, well, we can do this or we can do that, blah blah blah, and keep that cycle till it's becoming a dance that is ridiculous, or they sign, right? We'll go to yes after. If they say no, then pretty much that's it. Unless this partner, when you did your ideal partner profile, whatever, is absolutely mandatorily critical for you, at which point you need to do kind of the same thing I just described, but more in depth. You need to find a new approach to get into that partner, and that may mean dealing with different people, or different part of the organization, and completely revamping your strategy about this. I'm not going to dive too much on this one, because it's a case-by-case basis, depending on the severity of how strategic they are for you. And sometimes this is less going to be for channels like resellers and MSSPs and that kind of stuff, and more for bigger alliances usually, that you absolutely need to have this in your portfolio of partners. But at this point, it's a completely different strategy you're going to need to put in place, and completely rethink everything, involve executive up to your CEO and that kind of stuff, depending on the size of your company, of course, to make sure the second shot is going to be better, right?
Yeah, and here I'd like to just jump in for a second, and
Sure.
I think in this type of scenario, the scenario being as you say, there's a partner that is really strategic for you that you'd really love to sign up, but they're just not interested in working with you at this point in time. You have to understand that there are so many different avenues within which you can enter these accounts, and usually these are going to be the larger accounts. If it's a very small company, it's rare that it's going to be a very small partner that's going to be highly strategic. It's unlikely. It's usually a larger company that, like for example, an Optiv in cybersecurity, or maybe a big DMR, or big VAR like Presidio, right? So in these cases, I think what really makes sense is to approach it with an account-based marketing perspective, and really, understand the design of their hierarchical structure, and who the movers and shakers are in the company, which are the folks that are influential, which are the folks that actually can act as gatekeepers, where you actually have access and where your colleagues have access. So it could be that you may not have so many connections, but looking, for example, on LinkedIn Navigator, you might realize that your boss or your colleague might actually have a point of entry, right? So it really is a case of looking at this broadly and trying to find as many points of entry as possible, and then working out like an account development strategy, where and how you should proceed. But the only thing really that I wanted to say is understand that there are multiple points of entry, and not all are going to be directly related to you yourself as a person. You may have to use other people as a bridge, but it's about really working out that strategy, and don't lose hope. Take your time. Accept that it might take a year or more or two, but if it's worth the price, you should absolutely do it.
Yeah, and it might be that a strategy is not a specific company, but a specific set of company out of which. So what define them strategic might be they're part of that group. So for example, the big integrators, or the top 5 consultant, the Deloitte, the Accenture, that kind of stuff. You don't have 1,000 of them, right? You're going to have EY, KPMG, Deloitte, Accenture, a couple others, and that's it. So maybe in your strategy, you need to define which one is the easiest to get to before you get to the biggest one, or that type of stuff. Because once you get one, it's easier to get the others usually. I'm reading the notes.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mike's got a great comment here.
So that never hurts. I agree with you. It's always a good thing. But or it might be a much more restrained environment. For example, if you want to work with the cloud providers, the big ones, so you have 3 options, right? I mean, at least in Western Europe and North America, you have 3 options. Asia Pac, you have a little bit more. Europe, you have 1 more or 2 more. But the big ones, it's going to be only 3 of them, and they're going to define your strategy, part of it, because they have a lot. They have a lot of work done for their programs and all that, and you have to fit within their programs, not the other way around. So usually it's not that difficult. But where I disagree with Carlo, it's like he says, well, I agree with him that usually those strategic alliances and are going to be large company. It depends. It is true most of the time. I agree with that, but it depends. I've had situation where it was absolutely vital for a vendor to partner with another vendor, for example. And those are partnerships as well, because they had a complementary piece of the puzzle, and they were the only way to have that tiny little piece of the puzzle. But when aggregated with a solution, the result was incredibly big. And the benefit was more for one vendor than the other. So it was difficult to entice this other vendor to integrate with you and do all that kind of stuff and all that. So at this point, if this is that critical, be ready to make a lot of concessions and a lot of things like this, because this is a pass or fail partnership that you need to have, right? So it's important. But anyway,
you make an absolutely critical point there, and this is really, it's important that I jump in here, because we also have in the audience Tyler Wilson, a very dear old friend and an expert on partner-to-partner ecosystem development. And what I wanted to say is really the kind of work that we did together with Tyler, for example, when we worked on an IBM program, was really looking at these relationships more broadly. So, for example, the bridge into a partner, into a large partner, or into an account might be a company that is complementary to yourself or to one of your partners.
Mhm.
So that can actually act as the bridge. So, for example, in many cases, it might be a complementary ISV that has a complementary software product that already has a foot in the door, right? And that might be the way to enter a more strategic account. I'm a big fan. Something that we have done a lot of at Gorilla is partner-to-partner ecosystem development is really crucial.
Yeah, and very good point on the fact that some of your partners are going to be appealing because of a lot of your partners are going to be appealing because of their existing footprint when it comes to end users, right? So you got to take that into consideration. At any rate, let's move on, right? So then you have little things that are part of the. So some people consider this onboarding. Some people consider this recruiting. Let me make a note here because you'll see a lot on the right of this diagram. There is a column that is purely onboarding, but it was put in there, and we'll segregate at some point to demonstrate that recruiting and onboarding should be so tied together and so close to each other in terms of timeline that it's usually blended together, right? The notion of recruitment can't be efficient if you don't have the concept encompassing all things related to onboarding associated to it right away. And you will have some of those questions during the first call, your first recruitment call, asking about training, support, all that, all those elements that are actually element of onboarding. You will have them right away. So the contract for me, and that's only for me, is integral part of the recruiting portion. And I have seen partners that were excited at the beginning walking away from a relationship because it took too long to get the contract signed. The contract was too convoluted, too complicated. Redlining the contract was either not possible or not received with an open mindset from the vendor, and so on and so forth. All those kind of things. In a past company that I used to work with, getting a contract returned or was one or two elements redlined in the contract would take upwards till completion and execution of the contract to 2 months. That is absolutely ridiculous, especially if people are excited about you, right? It's like you're dating somebody and life is good, and he or she asks, when do we see each other next? And you look at your calendar and you say, well, what about next quarter, right? That shows how much passion you have into that thing. And maybe if it's not the case, it's because you have internal problems, and maybe you're very passionate. The translation of this, remember, people will remember how they feel, not what you say. How they feel about this is not good. And people have a tendency to extrapolate a little thing you're doing to everything else you're going to be doing. So they're like, well, it's signing a contract or executing on a contract is not something difficult, right? In theory. So if it takes them 2 months to do that, the day we're going to have a problem, how long is it going to take to solve that problem, right? Because this is not a problem. And they're going to start extrapolating to your lack of performance for something is going to be expended to potentially all the other things you're doing, right? And they're going to, even before dealing with you, they have a bad taste. Not good. So make sure you have in the preparation, the big box that was on the top of that thing, that's part of it, right? You understand your internal processes, and you make sure that you tell your legal team or whoever's in charge of contracts that when you bring them a contract to sign up a partner, you can return it the next day. And if there's something like this, that you show you're flexible and you show you're diligent and you show you are putting them on top of your priority list, and you're capable of having some level of velocity that fits with their model, because most of your partners will be little. They don't have any cycles to waste on anything. So they expect you to go quick and fast and efficiently on a lot of things. And if you can show that at any level of what you're doing with them, you just score points. Maybe not 100 points, but a little points here, a little points there. Remember, everything in this world is an aggregate of good or bad things. So I'm going to skip all this very quickly for the sake of time. Pretty much, you have all the contract things and what happened when you have, when you have red line. Do you resolve? If you don't resolve, it's very simple. That's the end of it. We were talking about larger alliances, and we were talking about larger partners and reseller VARs, so the CDW, the Optiv and Guidepoint and Presidios, and then the Deloittes, and then the cloud providers and all that. I mean, unless you're Dell or an Oracle or something like this, don't send them your contract. They're going to laugh at you when you're going to do that, first of all. You're going to show them that you're not knowledgeable of how things work in the world of big partnerships or alliances. They're going to send you their contract, and because of the nature of the beast, right? So you have a Microsoft, 40,000 partners, right? They don't have a legal team behind to look at the red line. They do red line. Microsoft does red line when they deal with Google or Oracle or Dell. But if you're not of that caliber, and no disrespect, but if you're not of that size, they don't make exception, right? So be also ready, and that's a message you have to pass internally to your management, to your CEO, to your legal team, or the person in charge of contract, to say, when we're going to deal, when we're going to get on the line card of Microsoft or have a partnership with Microsoft and all that, yeah, you can read the contract if you want, but you're wasting time, because there's nothing in there that you're going to be able to change. And just, bend over. You're the little one. You have to be flexible. If they start to do if they don't have one size fits all for their contracts, the cost of working with them is going to increase by a lot, because they're going to have to hire hundreds, if not thousands, of legal experts to do all that red line. So just a little caution here. Anyway, everything works fine. You see, I put here in the corner, I put DocuSign. So again, there's a number of tools in your organization that you're going to need to have. I do believe DocuSign is something similar as DocuSign is one of these tools. Nobody uses fax anymore. Nobody uses that kind of stuff, and is going to take the time to scan pages before they read them and print them and then sign them and then rescan them and then send them to you by email, that kind of stuff and all that. All of this is in the same flow of showing this message that you're fluent in your business, that you are easy to deal with, all that kind of stuff, right? It's important. All those little things on top of saving you time will create a sentiment that you are efficient, and they need people that are efficient. And that's it. So I'm not going to expand too much on this. Then let's go to the fun part. So Carlo, you're on mute, so I'm going to keep going.
All right. Well, look, hang on a second. It
wasn't me. I didn't put you on mute, by the way.
Busted up the floor. I was thinking that what's important really is in terms of visualizing the process of partner recruitment. I think it's important to share that you shouldn't look at it in terms of you should look at it in terms of an industrialized process that is going to carry on and on and on. And I'm not talking about strategic alliances. That's different. You may visualize to go to market with 3 strategic alliances, and that is that plan. But when it comes to channel partners, because of Pareto's law, because of the fact that many of those relationships, for whatever reason, will not deliver as successfully as you're expecting, you're going to need more. Some of them, strategies, plan, management teams change on the partner side. So you're going to have partners drop off. You need to have a process that is industrialized and ongoing and ongoing and ongoing.
Yeah.
So I just, when Jill mentioned tools, I just thought that I wanted to make sure that everybody really considers tools that are going to help you build like an engine, like a machine that carries on delivering over and over without relying on the Rolodex of your channel chief or channel rep or whoever you got. it's not about a Rolodex type relationships that you can leverage. That will get you some, but you got to have an industrialized process. And so therefore, I'm a big believer in processes, like, for example, fully utilizing LinkedIn Navigator as a system for nurturing in a very ongoing industrialized manner a certain amount of targets on a regular basis, or utilizing other forms of marketing. There's got to be a strong marketing engine that keeps on delivering up lead opportunities. It's just kind of like end user marketing in a sense. You got to have a machine that keeps on driving it. So I'm more than happy to jump into a deeper discussion into tools, but I'm not sure if that's part of what we're going to do today. Back over to you, Joe.
I don't know. It depends on how much time we have left. We have 20 minutes. We still have a little bit to talk about. So anyway, so completely agreed with what Carlos said. Prospecting partners is just like prospecting customers. The absolute rule is you never have enough of them, regardless of what people say. I hear all the time organizations saying we have too many partners, we have too many partners, we have too many partners. And when I look at the distribution of the revenue generated by their partners, even before that, when I look at their revenue mix between direct and indirect, I'm like, no, definitely you don't have enough partners. You're at 20% in indirect sales. You're way below at 4 standard deviation on the wrong side of the curve what your peers in the market are doing. So obviously you don't have enough partners. But then within the partner environment, you're going to realize that 90+% of the companies have a Pareto chart that gives them, anything between 10 and 20% doing anything between 80 and 90% of their revenue. You don't have enough partners. What you don't have is enough active partners, right? And part of those 80% of partners or 90% of partners that are not producing that you have, you can turn into active partners, definitely, right? But not all of them. And number one thing, and that's why you're going to keep needing to recruit partners all the time. And it's just like another pipeline, which is the sales pipeline. It's the exact same thing. When things go well, you don't stop prospecting. You keep doing it, right? It's you don't wait for things to go bad and say, we don't have enough partners. We need to launch a new partner recruitment campaign. And no, you keep doing it all the time. You keep bring them in all the time. You know what? Best case scenario, all the new ones you bring, they cost more money for the organization because now you're going to need another channel manager to cover that extra partners and all that. But if the ROI is positive after a year, 2 years, 3 years of having this partner with you, it's always a good thing. So completely agree with Carlo. Do not stop. And to be able to do that efficiently, you're going to need to have processes and methods to do it. And in this day and age, if you don't have a portal or a PRM to tackle that phase of the recruitment, on top of everything else that's going to happen after that, and we'll talk. We should have actually, I don't know if this is planned, but we should have a session dedicated to why a PRM. Why do you need a PRM? And when do you not need one? That's easy to answer. But we should do one like this. But you need one. So maybe you don't have one, or you don't have a portal, right? Right. So that's the bugs. Get one. I can't talk about this. I've been in channel 25 years. The day PRM started to show up was a game changer for me. Even at the earlier stages of PRM that were not as good as the one that are out there today, it was absolutely stellar. And in beneficial ethics. But if you don't have one, you can still use Excel. Good luck. But if you have a small subset of partners at the beginning till you figure out, which PRM or which portal you're going to either build or acquire, then that's fine. But anyway,
if you got a good comment from Scott. Sorry, factor couldn't also be a factor related to quality of the partner program itself to spur the partner to succeed for those inactive partners.
It's just like what I said before. It's an aggregate of a lot of things. Some of them you
Yep.
control, some of them you do not control. So the one you control is your partner program, right? This is kind of limited. There's a limited amount of things you can do in your program unless you factor in things like incentives and so on and so forth. But if we take the concept of partner program at large, which is going to involve what do you do to support them from a marketing perspective, what do you do to do them from a sales perspective, to support them from a sales perspective and all that, then yes, absolutely, Scott. It is, I would say, first and foremost related to what you put on the table, right? The process of developing a good ecosystem of partner is very agricultural. It's you have to seed, then you have to water, then you have to weed out, then you have to do all that kind of stuff because before you can harvest, right? And a lot of people enter this by expecting that at the end of the year, their partner ecosystem will be producing and humongous amount of revenue and that kind of stuff and all that. As I mentioned at the beginning, none of these guys that you're going to be recruiting, absolutely zero, none of them need you. So you're going to need to be the giver at the beginning and the one that nurture and do all those kind of thing and all that, right? And so yes, in that sense, your partner program at large, meaning encompassing all the things you do for your partners, not just the document that says partner program, it is important. But despite that, there's two other elements that may run against all the good things you put in place and all that, and still yield a partner that is not going to be producing. The first one is, what are the other vendors on that partner line card doing, right? And if they do individually or in aggregate, if they do better than you and they've had longer relationship and that kind of stuff and all that, and the people, the sales people and the technical people speak the language of those vendors better, so they're more confident presenting when they're in front of customers and all that kind of stuff, there's very little you can do. You get to just, and if you still think it's a good partner that deserves the time, you need to give it time, right? Till somebody else mentioned, you can bring them a deal or two, or bring them on a deal or two, or that kind of stuff, and start making them seeing that, yeah, there's something to do with you, right? Till they get some more interest, at which point they will give you more mind share, which will probably over time result into more revenue, which is good. The other thing that you cannot factor in is like, you have, I'm sorry to say that, but you have partner out there that are very not good, mediocre. Very not good is good. But they are mediocre. And I'm not saying they're bad, but they're good within a set of customers that they've had forever. And that's probably why they incepted themselves a partner. They usually used to work at the vendor supplying this end user, or at the end user itself, got out, created their partner, and because of their relationship, have one customer. I can name quite a few partners out there that have 98% of their revenue or more with one customer, right? These people are probably not going to be interested into pushing your solution left, right, center, and that depends. That maybe that one customer they have is a target customer for you that is extremely important, in which case go for it, right? But those are elements you can control, and you'll have that a lot. So the result we have from a Pareto standpoint of the 10% to 90%, or the 10% of your partner generating 90% of your has also to do a lot with the topology of partner. There are a lot of guys out there, they're very happy with 1, 3, 5 customers, and they don't go any further than that. And their line card has 250 products because they try to sell everything into those few customers, and it's enough to make their team of 3 or 5 people live, right? Maybe that's not the one you want to go to. And when you're a startup, you definitely don't want to go to these guys. What you want to do is go to the one that are actively prospecting, working, deals and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's hard to measure. And what helps to measure those type of engagement, those type of people and all that, there's a lot of equation that helps you see, what do they do, given the number of deals they register, given the number of campaigns they launch with you in co-marketing, given the number of events they're going to do with you or by themselves and that kind of stuff. You're not going to be able to do this in Excel. Get a PRM, get a portal. That's what's going to help. So anyway, I'm going to let Carlo talk a little bit, because here we're pretty much done when you have this, right? When you've signed your partner, everybody sings Kumbaya. You take the guys to have a drink somewhere. If you have somebody local, then we're going to get into what's really the enablement phase. So I'm not going to talk about the things on the right here, that column on the right. Um, but it's I'm sorry, I'm not showing it. Here we go. Where you're going to start doing your sales training and your technical training and maybe your partner portal training and your marketing training. But I'm going to talk about one thing, and then Carl, you can go for it, right? Throughout the journey of recruiting partners and being on the calls and all that, one thing that is important that very, very little vendors do or channel teams do is identify who are the assets from that partner. Who are your assets? So everybody thinks that because they know the CEO of a company, that's it. You know, they're at the highest point of the company and everything is going to be peachy, and the CEO is going to go down to his sales manager, who's going to go down to his sales team and say, sell that shit. Because the guy there is the best friend of the CEO. So I don't want to, get my back broken by him. Just go and sell that shit. That ain't happening. Not with a good salespeople. What's going to happen is the good salespeople are going to keep making their numbers and killing their numbers. And if they kill their numbers without one sale of your product, nobody's going to complain about this. Not one person, not even the CEO, even if he's your best friend. It doesn't matter. As long as those guys are producing, everybody's going to steer away from them and let them do that thing. So you need to understand very quickly, who are these guys and gals, right? When I say guys, sorry, I don't want to be disrespectful. It encompasses everybody. But it's, and throughout all the calls and trainings and all the stuff you're going to have and all that, you're going to want to find the one that are the most engaged first and the most performing second, right? And if it's the same set of people, jackpot, because this is where you're going to focus your efforts at the beginning, not on the company, but on those people in particular, because they are the one that's going to make your numbers, nobody else, right? And that can also be pre-sales people. That can be all that kind of, because today a lot of salespeople hide behind the salespeople when they go. A lot of salespeople hide behind the pre-sales engineers when they go sell something, right? And most of the sale is actually conducted by the pre-sales engineers. You want to identify those people. It's very, very critical, because if you focus on the company and the management layer of the company, and the top sales guy leaves and go work for another one that you haven't signed yet, nothing, the CEO is going to go sell your stuff, right? But if you have this asset, this particular person as your champion, and he goes to a company you haven't signed, the first thing that's going to happen is probably going to call you and say, you need to sign my new company, right? And he's going to do the sell inside to make sure they understand that. That's going to be a new partner, very easily acquired. So I'm going to leave it there, because after that, we're going to dive deeply into the next session in August is going to be on enablement. And we'll talk more in depth about the trainings and the welcome letter and, the sales package and the technical package and marketing support and all that kind of stuff. So, Carlo, you wanted to add a few things?
Yeah, just to emphasize, and reinforce again the point you made around, making what's really important as you recruit partners is to show that you're easy to do business with from the very beginning. And then you've got to be easy to do business with right through, which means there's got to be a ton of forethought. You've really got to get your ducks lined up in a row. I believe you, and it's not because Gorilla has platforms that are designed for this kind of thing, but I can really say you need to have a platform that automates as much as possible the workflow and makes it like a pleasure every step of the way for the partner to interact with you, right? They have to have if they have a wow experience of, wow, this company's, not only do they have my back, not only are they givers, but they are also really buttoned up, right? One of my friends not long ago bought a Tesla. And he said, look, one of the best experiences I've had in my life is the process of buying a Tesla. So I never bought a Tesla myself. But what he said was, look, the whole process was such a, like, they thought about everything. Of course, they've got tons of resources, but they thought about everything so well in advance that every step of the process was like a wow. Oh, they thought about that already. And then, I'm just given a PIN code, and then I go to a garage, and then my car automatically lights up and I'm good to go. So that same kind of mentality of making things easy is really fundamental. Where partner recruitment falls down, and I've seen too many of these situations, is really starting from the partner agreement, the contract. The contract not being partner friendly, being too convoluted, being too much favoring the vendor, not balanced enough. These are just killers. They'll just completely obliterate your efforts to recruit. They're setting up the whole company for failure. You're burning the time of your resources, is costing you money, and you're burning the time of these potential partners that could actually become really valuable partners. So the partner agreement, work on it in advance, test it, focus group it with some potential partners. Is this kind of agreement that would that you'd be comfortable with? Where would you be pushing back? What would be, and then frame that inside of a process inside like a PRM system.
I need to interrupt you one second, Carl. Carlo just said something absolutely critical too, and we mentioned this probably at every show, right? Do that focus group / benchmark / testing with your friend in the channel, right? The partners that you have already, that you're buddy with, or friends or whatever, at any level, sales management, technical, CEOs, that kind of stuff. Do that before you launch something every time, right? Being a spiff, your contract, anything like this. If you have connection, go to these people that you've known for the past 10 years, the past 5 years, whatever, and ask them. I do that all the time when I launch a partner program. I go to a set of ex partners where the owners or whoever are no friends because I've been dealing with them for 2 decades. And I ask them, what do you think of that? And sometimes they laugh at me. It's like that shit's never going to stick, right? I mean, it's like, it's bad. You got to tweak this, and that. And after talking about 2 or 3 of them, I can have something a little bit more refined that has a little more chance to stick with the partners, and partners to embrace either the program or the spiff or the initiative or whatever it is that you're doing. But in extension, you can try, if you're about to launch a channel program for a startup, you can do the same with a contract, right? You can do the very same thing. And I've seen contracts that were 4 pages and others that were 40 pages for the same size as a small company. And there's got to be a right balance somewhere and that kind of stuff. But it's not with levity that when we say that can kill your efforts, it actually can. It can absolutely kill your efforts, right? So be careful with all that and test it before.
Sorry, awesome. No, that was really excellent. Thanks for chiming in. And since we got like a minute to wrap up, my last really concluding statement, and I normally don't really plug Gorilla as much as I'm doing right now, but don't be shy about actually bringing in an expert consultant. Don't rely on a person that's done it once or twice before. If you can possibly afford it, bring in a company or an agency or an organization that has done this hundreds, if not thousands of times, because it's only through that level of experience that you'll be able to, close the loop quicker, get to success a lot quicker without banging your head against that brick wall yourself too many times. Yeah. So it is this. I think this is one of the steps that it really benefits companies to work with outside experts if you can possibly pull it off.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point to end on as well, Carlos. So thank you, Carlo. Thank you, Gilles. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It was an interesting topic and a great discussion. This recording will be available on our website, gorillaict.com, under the events tab, as well as on our YouTube channel. So connect with us and follow us on LinkedIn as well. And join us in August for our next webinar on enabling and onboarding your new partners. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.